Thank you, Speaker. I appreciate the opportunity to speak briefly on this, and particularly on the issue of putting some reasons around the grounds under which people could be terminated from their homes and provided with an eviction notice. This amendment is very simple. As you will see, it simply seeks to add in a restriction on landlords giving termination notices during the COVID-19 pandemic that would allow for regulations to be set out as to what reasonable grounds would be. This amendment, all it does is basically says, yes, it's completely reasonable for the idea of it is completely reasonable for a landlord to want to give notice because they want to move back into their home. Absolutely reasonable. Or they have a family member that wants to move back into that home. But it is not reasonable to evict someone because they are not playing ball with what you think is the demands that you can make during a pandemic and put additional pressures on them. This amendment, which would put simply the idea of having regulations, was very close to being agreed in terms of the grounds. There are a number of reasonable grounds that could be provided, and I would strongly urge the government to consider supporting this amendment. It provides the minister back again with the regulation powers to be able to articulate and work with stakeholders, recognising the Labor Shadow's concerns around the lack of consultation with stakeholders. I can assure her that these amendments were actually consulted on far and wide in the review of the Residential Tenancies Act and have been done in consultation with key tenants representative groups, and they are aware of the changes that we are making. But I would say that this provision actually just simply says that we will put into regulation some reasonable grounds that we think are acceptable in this context. And before I finish, I just wanted to say that at the moment, I want to put on the record the frustration that renters are hearing people in this place saying that we need to find a balance to protect renters and landlords. Now, it needs to be very, very clear that the issue of investment properties and the people that have a vested interest in these investment properties do not just sit outside there in the community. Actually, the people that are the cabinet ministers that are making the decisions about renters' rights in New South Wales are themselves making significant amounts of money from property investment. We've seen the scandalous situation of the Minister Harwin, former Minister Harwin, going to his holiday home and his investment property. We've seen the same stories about the Deputy Premier Barilaro. I would put on the record that it might be of interest for people to know that there are Ministers Barilaro and Ministers Marshall and Ministers Lee in this New South Wales government that all own 4 investment properties.
I'd ask the member for Newtown to wrap up, please. I think you're leaving. You're going past the discretion I've shown you, so I'll ask you to wrap up right now.
Thank you, Speaker. And in addition to that, there are many other members that are making decisions about this that are making money from investment properties. I want to say that we will continue to stand here in the interests of renters and providing them with a safe, secure and affordable place to live. It is really, really disappointing that we are finding ourselves cut short from being able to debate these very reasonable amendments because of the fact that this government wants to rush through this legislation. It is incredibly disappointing to see that there are millions of renters that are actually struggling to not know how they are going to pay rent next week, who are not protected by the impacted tenants measures and will not be provided with any protection under this legislation. And can I just say that I very much hope that we are back here having the same conversation, speaking to the successful passage of these amendments through the upper house. And I hope that the government will realise that there is a need to provide protections around this and to recognise that this simple amendment that says that it is not fair to kick someone out of their home for no reason during a pandemic is absolutely essential to be able to act on.